the one, the only, Benzion. Good afternoon and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Iyun Benzion. Today's daf is Maseches Gittin daf Chav Beis, number 22. I want to talk about what I started off with, really in Chav Aleph and Beis. We started today's shir, where it talks about a case where you write a get on an atzitz nakuf, basically a flowering pot. It could have flowers, it could have vegetables in there, but basically the pot is on the ground, but there's no roots coming from the ground to the pot. The pot is growing by itself. Flowers growing from the seeds in the pot. But it does get sustenance from the ground because there's a perforation, there's a hole in the bottom. And at least by Hilchos Shabbos, if you had an atzitz nakuf on the ground, then you picked it up off the ground, you're chayav d'oraisa. Maybe even get skila for that, for the malacha of ktsira, of detaching from the ground, right? Just like you'll pluck a fruit from a tree. It's the same thing. Here also, you're removing the flower pot from the ground, from the sustenance. You're harvesting. That's really the malacha over here. So it's malacha d'oraisa. If you had two witnesses and a hasra, you could even chayav skila for this. Here, at least the Gabi Hilchos Gittin doesn't seem to have a problem. Everyone agrees that if I write on the flowering pot the get, and I sign it on the get, I sign it on the flowering pot, the two witnesses, and then you give it in front of two witnesses, even though it's mechutz or ktzitza, we just talked about the last Mishnah, kasol mechuber l'karka, everyone uses pasol. If it was signed mechuber l'karka, and then you gave it, everyone uses pasol. In that case, how could this be? How could this be that it's kosher? There's only, maybe Rava says that if you're on a leaf, maybe the gzeira shama yikton, it's only the rabbana. But no one says the problem with d'oraisa of mechutz or ktzitza over here. I'll even read you the footnote over here, number 1 in 22a1. Ron questions why in this case Abai rules a get valid, and why according to Rava it is only rabbinically disqualified, when in fact there are grounds to invalidate it under biblical law. For since halacha regards a plant in a perforated pot as being attached to the ground, lifting the pot off the ground in order to give the leaf inside to the woman necessarily involves a legal uprooting of the plant, so only if the plant is attached can the woman acquire the get rid on the leaf by simply receiving the pot. Hence, the husband lifting the pot in order to detach the plant from the ground constitutes an intervening procedure that should invalidate the get. It has to be v'kasa v'nasan, v'lo v'kasa v'katzas v'nasan, right? Mechutz or ktzitza, can't be mechutz or ktzitza. Ron answers that even though lifting the pot constitutes an act of detaching, even in terms of Sabbath law, it still does not disqualify the get. For since both detaching the plant and giving the get are performed simultaneously, in the one act of lifting the pot, detaching is not considered a third act that intervenes between the writing and the giving of the get. So the Ran says, we're talking about Hachav Mayaskina, we're talking about a case where the flower pot is on the ground and the woman is right here. I pick up the flowering pot and I give it to the woman. So it's one act. So you can't say mechutz or ktzitza. If it's written on a tree, I have to cut off the tree. Then I have to take it, fashion it into something that the woman would want and give it to her. But he makes an assumption that we're talking about only that type of case. The Ran would say it's invalid if he actually, in his own private home, he wrote a get on it, signed the get, had it signed, then detached it, and then a day later he brought Adam and he gave it to the woman. That would be invalid according to the Ran. The Gemara assumes for sure there'll be a problem. To me, it doesn't seem to me hachav mayaskina. We'd rather not say it's only in that type of case. So I'd like to give a distinction over here between Hilchos Shabbos and Hilchos Gittin. We already discussed this in the previous two shiurim over here when it came to ksiva, right? We mentioned on Daf Chaf, I believe, or was it Daf Yotet, where we talked about ksav al gabe ksav, right? Gabe Hilchos Shabbos, if you have red ink and then you have black ink on top of it, you violate two malachas by retracing the letters with the black ink. One, your kos if you're writing, and two, your mocha at the bottom. Hilchos Gittin, it's not considered writing a get. If you have red ink on the bottom and someone retraces it over black, part of ksivas a get is v'kasav. You have to write the get. It's not considered writing because you didn't accomplish anything. So the question is, what's the difference? So we answered over there. The difference is that when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos, it's about doing malacha. It's about accomplishing work. It's the totzah, the result of what you're doing, the act of working, right? Accomplishing something. That Torah doesn't want you. The Torah wants you to desist from malacha on Shabbos. So you shouldn't be involved in malacha on Shabbos because when you do work, you want the result. That's how people work, to get results. That's all types of work that people engage in, is to get results. We're not talking about in Mitzrayim when we're talking about avodas parech, or where they're working people for no purpose. That's the purpose you do work, is to accomplish something. No one does work to not accomplish something. However, when it comes to Gittin, it's the Maisa. The Kasav and Nasan. The Kasav and the Nasan is a Maisa. It's the Maisa of writing and the Maisa of giving. Now, the act of writing, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. You're just retracing letters. So that's why it's not a valid. Again, the same thing over here also. Again, in Atzitz Nakov, in one respect, it's considered attached to the ground, but it's not really attached to the ground, right? There's no Maitza Ktsira over here. When I pluck an apple from a tree, I am physically plucking the apple from the branch and detaching it from the tree. When I take it out this knuckle that's not rooted in the ground, and I remove it from the ground, that's only the guy Hilchos Shabbos, because I'm accomplishing something. It's getting its nutrients from the ground. That's the reason. It gets nutrients from the ground. So I'm accomplishing a malacha by detaching it from the ground. However, when it comes to Hilchos Gittin, it's about the Maisa. When we had a problem, Chutzar Ktsitza, it says V'kasav v'nasan, lo v'kasav v'nasan, right? It's only talking about doing Maisa Ktsitza. Here, when he takes the Atzitz Nakov and he detaches it from the ground, he's not doing a Maisa Ktsitza. He's doing a malacha of Ktsitza, of Ktsira, Kotzer, but he's not doing a Maisa. There's no Maisa over here. In the physical world, Maisa is measured in the physical world. Physically, it's not attached to the ground. In the metaphysical world, not spiritual, like we explained the difference in monetary law between Shalom and Rishuso. Shalom means I physically own the object. Rishuso means it's my domain, metaphysical domain. So also in Shabbos, this gets its nutrients from the ground, from the air. So metaphysically, right, it's attached to the ground. But physically, it's not attached to the ground. In terms of the Maisa, it's not lacking any ksira, any detachment from the ground. In terms of the result, which is important by Hilchos Shabbos, it is missing something, and detaching is detaching. That's why we chayim on Shabbos malacha for the but Gittin is measured by the Maisa, the writing, and the nasan, and also the ksitza. When there's a problem of mechutz or ksitza is when I do an act of detaching from the ground. Physically, you're not doing anything over here. So that's why it's not a problem according to everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's share. See you in the next one.